Alpha, you wanted to see me? A young warrior stepped into the office. Yes, Zayn nodded, encouraging the young male to enter. Like most werewolves, Dash had a dark complexion as well as hair and eyes. Given that wolves originated from the Mediterranean region, many still bore the hallmarks common to that area even after centuries of breeding. How can I help you, Alpha? Dash asked as he stood in front of the desk. We have ourselves a little problem that could become an issue, Zayn said. It seems the royal family is not happy with Blue Moon's Luna. They are attempting to petition the council to declare was on the pack. Why would the royal family do that? What did the Luna do? She was born, Zayn sighed. The answer only confused Dash more and asked, Alpha, I don't know much about politics, but I do know we have close ties with Blue Moon. Do you plan on supporting them even against the royal family? That is the question, Zayn sighed. But you won't like this next part. Alpha? You remember that friend of yours from your old pack? Phoebe? Dash asked. It had been years since he saw or even spoke to her, the one wolf who seemed to understand him. If not for her support, he wouldn't have been able to leave. He would have taken her with him, but her mother just passed away and her father wasn't doing well. He contacted her later after he settled in at Strawberry Moon, only to learn she had taken in 2 orphans. Given her caring heart, it didn't surprise him at all. It pained him all the more because no one in Rimrock appreciated her efforts, and it especially annoyed him her own fated mate didn't appreciate her. She never breathed a word who had been dumb enough to reject her, but he had his suspicions. Phoebe was intelligent, kind, humble, and treated every pup like her own. It was obvious to him she was meant to be Luna, which meant the fool had to be their alpha. Dash couldn't stand it, the fact that their alpha could chosen mate when his fated mate was right in front of him. Others in the pack warned him fated bonds didn't sever completely unless their wolves accepted the rejection as well, which meant Phoebe would be subjected to his betrayal every night he was with his chosen mate. He wanted to help and practically begged his Luna to request a transfer. Luna Chandler warned it would be a long shot, especially if the Rimrock Alpha was her mate, but agreed to try. It had been rejected. Dash practically begged Phoebe to make the journey to Strawberry Moon, even if she had to go rogue. But she wouldn't leave the pups, and she wouldn't allow them to go rogue with an uncertain future. He shouldn't have been surprised. Phoebe was impossibly stubborn, and it irritated him how she undervalued herself. She was so busy taking care of others, she never bothered about herself. I don't understand. What does this have to do about Phoebe? Dash asked, his mind returning to the present. She's Blue Moon's Luna. Dash remained silent as the news sunk in before suddenly doubling over in laughter. It was too much. Phoebe, dear, sweet Phoebe, who had been treated like shit by their own pack, rejected by her mate, was now the Luna of the world's most powerful pack. It was too much. The goddess certainly knew how to twist a screw. Dash? Zayn let him go for a while before trying to calm him. Are you okay? Yeah. Dash caught his breath. You're sure? I mean, was she all right? Did Alpha Jason treat her all right? Was she happy? I've known Jason for quite a few years, Zayn said. He has been desperate to find his fated mate. I've never seen any wolf look so tirelessly for their mate. I can assure you he adores her, and I would say worships the ground she walks on. He does? Rest assured his devotion knows no bounds. A smile twitched Dash's lips. Finally, someone appreciated and treated Phoebe with the love she deserved. She deserved every moment of happiness. He also adopted the orphans she took in, Zayn said. Really? He did? Dash asked, surprised. An alpha? There is nothing Jason will not do for his Luna to make her happy. Dash heard many rumors of the Blue Moon Alpha. He was reserved, unemotional, and distant. Jason treated everyone with respect, but he avoided emotional entanglements. Many thought he was cold, but that didn't stop several she-wolves from pursuing him. He didn't spare any of them a single thought. It was hard to believe Alpha Jason could be soft and adoring, let alone adopt pups that had no relation to him. Could it really be true? But you said the royal family is against Blue Moon's Luna. I did, Zayn nodded. The king seems to think she will destroy the fabric of werewolf society. Phoebe? Dash exclaimed. Impossible. There is no way. Phoebe is the kindest, most selfless wolf ever to live. There is no way she is capable of that. I only met her for a few moments, but I am inclined to agree, Zayn nodded. She was quite charming and sincere. She is, Dash quickly agreed. Absolutely. They were both silent for a time, thinking about the startling facts. How could the king even think that? Dash suddenly asked. Did the king even meet Phoebe? I think it has something to do with her wolf's color, Zayn said. She's silver. Silver? Dash repeated. You didn't know? No, she never shifted in front of anyone. Most in the pack thought she was wolfless. But not you? Well, no. I mean, my wolf said she had one, and deserved to be respected. Interesting, Zayn muttered. Very strange, but we should learn more shortly. New Moon is planning to contact Blue Moon. They should be able to inform them about silver wolves, which just leaves the royal family angle and why they hate silver wolves. What are we going to do? Dash asked, feeling sick to his stomach. They couldn't simply do nothing. Phoebe deserved to be happy, and if the Blue Moon Alpha made her happy, then they should be left alone. That is the question, isn't it? Zayn sighed. It was the question plaguing him since the princess's birthday. Blue Moon was a close ally, and they shared blood ties. But even more than that, Zayn genuinely liked Jason. Jason was intelligent and noble-minded. He came from a strong bloodline and possessed a powerful aura, but he wasn't domineering. Jason preferred to coordinate and network with conversation rather than giving orders. He was likable with a firm moral compass. He was admired, and his opinion often consulted. None of this went to his head. He wasn't arrogant, and he didn't make demands or attempt to oppress others. Perhaps this made the royal family underestimate him. The king actually thought he could command Jason, and he thought the other packs would support conflict against Blue Moon. Zayn wasn't sure if the king was blind or just stupid, but that still left what they were going to do. At 1,000 members, Strawberry Moon was a prominent pack, though not quite at the level of the ancient packs. Still, they had quite a bit of influence and a respected voice. So what move did they want to make? What message should they send? A knock interrupted his thoughts as Chandler entered. Oh, am I interrupting? Not at all, Zayn smiled, welcoming him with a hug and quick kiss. Already his anxiety diminished with his Luna's presence. Luna, Dash nodded in recognition and respect. Chandler was the epitome of a proper Luna, carrying yet firm, gentle yet strong, intelligent and quick-witted. Every pup was his own, and any time a pack member had an issue, no matter how small he was there. What brings you here? Zayn asked. He certainly didn't mind his Luna's visits, but Chandler generally spent his day with various pack members and organizing events. Em just sent a message, Chandler said, handing him his phone. Zayn frowned reading it before shooting Chandler a look, only to see his face was equally concerned. He looked to Dash, still standing in front of him. Dash, I want you to take 100 of our best and head to Blue Moon to support them. Alpha, go, get it done. Yes, Alpha. Dash spun on his heel and departed on his mission. Zayn looked at Chandler. What do you think it means? No idea, but it's big. If she's sending the message to me instead of Jason, they are trying to keep it secret. Blue Moon's communication is probably being monitored. This isn't the first time they've used us as a proxy to pass along important messages. Zayn nodded. I already prepared them a private jet to get them back here as quickly as possible. What do you think this is about? I don't know. Zayn shook his head. But Jason has waded into a much larger pond than I thought. I don't know what the moon goddess is thinking, but I have a feeling nothing is going to be the same once this is over. Jason focused on the reports in front of him. After the last few days, he needed the distraction. Luke and Ben had tracked down his father's other partners. One was still a member of Blue Moon and happily mated with her fated mate. The other joined her fated mate's pack and lived in North Carolina. It seemed that some of his father's trysts moved on. Even so, he couldn't relax. For now, he ordered them to be monitored, but left it at that. As long as there was nothing suspicious in their activities and communication, there was nothing to be done. Luke was double-checking anyone, pack member or not, that might have a vendetta against him or his father. Jason had always run his pack fairly, but there were always a few that felt slighted by policies. Thankfully, his father had also been a fair alpha. It was his private life that was a mess. Alpha, we have an issue. Oh? Jason came to attention as the warriors monitoring the main road into the territory contacted him. He opened the link, allowing both Luke and Ben to hear as well. "We have about 100 warriors here from Strawberry Moon. Their captain says they've been sent to help. He was as message for you direct from his alpha. Let the envoy through with the message. Have the others wait until I see for myself." "Yes, Alpha. Did you know?" Luke asked. Normally, Alpha Zayn would have contacted them ahead of time to warn them prior to sending out warriors. "No." Jason frowned. They had good relations with Strawberry Moon, and thanks to Christina they shared familial bonds. In the past, Zayn sent warriors to Blue Moon for advanced training, or else requested trainers from Blue Moon to his pack for the same. It helped the pack grow into such a powerful entity in a relatively short time. There was an unshakable bond of respect between both packs and a strong alliance, but this was unprecedented. Zayn never sent warriors without making arrangements first. It made Jason nervous that the Strawberry Moon Alpha had picked up on rumors he hadn't yet. Was he missing something? He waited anxiously for the envoy, not sure what to expect, even when Luke ushered in the warrior. The wolf in front of him was average height and build, perhaps a little on the lanky side, speaking to his speed and agility. Jason sensed this warrior was just as anxious as he was, having never met face-to-face before. No doubt he knew plenty of rumors that swirled around Jason and didn't know what to expect. "Alpha," the warrior finally acknowledged with a nod. "And you are?" "Dash Johnson. Alpha Zayn sent me with a message for you." He revealed a small envelope and handed it to him. Jason accepted it, noting it was sealed. "Do you have any idea what is in this?" "No." Dash shook his head. "I only know Luna Chandler received a message from his sister, and the contents made our Alpha dispatch 100 warriors to assist you in protecting Luna Phoebe." Jason stiffened. "What do you know about my Luna?" "We grew up together in the same pack. She was pretty much the only friend I had, and when I couldn't stand it any longer, she helped me leave. It always upset me. I couldn't get her out too." Dash shook his head. "But she wouldn't leave her parents or the pups she was taking care of. That's how I know the royal family is wrong. Luna Phoebe is kind and generous and incapable of doing what they claim." Jason sucked in a slow breath. He recalled Phoebe and Chandler talking about a warrior during the princess's birthday. That's why this wolf seemed familiar. Though Jason couldn't help but be jealous, it was clear this wolf only wanted the best for Phoebe and was sincere about protecting her. "Phoebe?" "Yes." "Can I have you up to the office? There is someone here to see you. An old friend." "Of course." Jason couldn't help the little spur of jealousy at her enthusiasm, but he knew she would be happy to see an old friend, and she apparently didn't have many from that time of her life. He wanted her to have as many connections as possible to prove to her how great a Luna she was and had always been, even if no one recognized it. To distract himself, he opened the envelope and the small card containing Zayn's message. It was barely a single sentence, but it pierced her heart with fear he never felt before and stirred a rage seldom unleashed. "Jason," Luke snapped as he, Ben, and Dash cowered at the weight of his aura. Jason jerked to attention and withdrew his overbearing aura. "Sorry. What the hell got you so uptight?" Ben asked. Instead of answering, he merely held out the card. Hesitantly, Ben accepted it and read it before exclaiming, "What? What does this mean? Hey, did you know about this?" Dash blinked, shaking his head. "Alpha Zayn never shared the contents. He just said to lead a team up here to help." Ben frowned, handing the card to Luke. The beta stared at it in surprise. "The silver wolf must be protected at all costs. The future depends on it. Talk to you soon. Em and Chris." "What the f***?" Luke asked through their shared link. Jason shook his head. The message was cryptic and straightforward at the same time. Clearly, Emily and Christina wanted to warn them even if they didn't want to say too much over open channels. They said all that needed to be said. No wonder Alpha Zayn immediately sent reinforcements. A knock interrupted further contemplation, and the door opened to reveal Phoebe. She looked at Jason with a note of concern. No doubt she had felt everything through the bond. Her gaze passed over Luke and Ben before settling on the one wolf who was not immediately familiar. He was certainly a warrior, well-trained and disciplined, yet he seemed nervous. Standing in front of Jason, she could sympathize, especially when his aura was fueled by rage, as it had been moments ago. But there was also a strange longing in the warrior's gaze, and something familiar. His scent was also familiar. Dash? Phoebe suddenly exclaimed as memories long buried finally surfaced. "Hi, Phoebe," he grinned. "Oh, my goddess!" she exclaimed immediately, wrapping him in a hug. He used to be such a small, lean male, but he had grown and filled out well since they last saw each other. Sensing Jason's discomfort, she kept the contact brief even as relief filled her seeing her friend so well. "I just saw Luna Chandler and he told me how well you were doing. I'm so glad." "Thanks. Alpha Zayn told me they saw you. You look amazing," Dash said and meant it. After her rejection, Phoebe lost so much weight and became so morose and lethargic. Her mother's death and her father's poor health certainly didn't help, but eventually she started spending more time in her mother's garden and her mood improved. The difference between her then and now was nothing short of night and day. Phoebe had certainly gained weight. Her complexion had always been on the paler side, but she now had a healthy glow and a vibrancy that was hard to ignore. "Thank you," Phoebe blushed. "I admit it's all still pretty new, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else." She glanced toward Jason with a warm smile. He felt her love radiating through their bond, and Lobo immediately settled. Since the moment she embraced the other male, his wolf raised his hackles, wanting to renew their claim, but injuring her friend would also hurt Phoebe, and Jason didn't want to bear the label of an overbearing, jealous alpha. Seeing her smile eased his mind considerably. Phoebe and Dash might have been childhood friends, but in her heart she belonged to him. Stepping forward, Jason gently grasped her hand, kissing it and subtly drawing her away from the warrior. The action was not lost on Dash, but he saw immediately that Phoebe was all too happy to be held by her alpha mate. "Alpha Zayn sent Dash and about 100 warriors to help bolster our forces as a sign of solidarity between our packs," Jason explained. "He did?" Phoebe seemed surprised. "Oh, where will we put them all? Are they here?" "The majority are still waiting at our border," Jason nodded to Luke, who immediately sent the link to allow them entry. "Zayn didn't send any communication prior to their arrival, so I wasn't sure why they were here. Dash had a message for me, which is why I allowed him to enter first." "Oh," Phoebe nodded. It seemed a wise precaution considering the situation they were in. "Do we have enough rooms in the pack house for them?" "Actually, it will be better to house them in the warrior barracks," Ben interjected. "They'll need to train alongside ours so they can be integrated with them. We'll also have to pair them up since we won't be able to mind link with them directly." The others nodded in agreement. Unless Dash and the others joined Blue Moon, they wouldn't be able to access the pack link. They could mind link with those in sight, but to maintain a communication network, they'd need a partner with Blue Moon's warriors. "Who do we have that is good with coordinating and combined training?" Jason asked, pulling Phoebe into his embrace, allowing his scent to cover the warriors that had transferred to her. He kissed her temple and nuzzled her, making it clear to their visitor she belonged to him. Phoebe seemed unaware of his possessive gesture, welcoming his nearness and touch. Dash, however, understood perfectly. He knew he wasn't much of a challenge to an alpha, but if Phoebe expressed any desire to leave, he still would have done what was necessary to help her escape. But it was easy to see Phoebe was comfortable in Jason's arms and welcoming to his advancements. It was also very clear Alpha Jason cherished his mate. His aura swirled protectively around her. "Let's see," Luke thought aloud, ignoring Jason's silent territorial claim. "Chaz is probably my first choice, though Noah and Cam are both experienced too." It didn't surprise Jason Luke's top 3 picks had been part of the security team. There was a particular art for warriors to integrate and work with those from other packs without disrupting the chain of command already established at those packs. Chaz, Noah, and Cam were veterans of such training. Chaz is teaching a class and Noah is a patrol. Luke looked at the daily rosters. Cam should be free for lunch. Jason nodded as Luke opened a link and summoned the trusty warrior. Cam had already proven loyal to his Luna. He would instill that loyalty into the newcomers and keep an eye on them for detractors. "So I guess it's good you didn't join Strawberry Moon." Dash said, after a moment looking to Phoebe, who seemed completely at ease, even in the arms of arguably the most powerful alpha on the planet. She blushed. I guess so. It wasn't easy, but once Jason found me, everything seemed to fall into place, even things I didn't understand. I'm glad I stayed, and I wouldn't change where I am for anything. Jason's embrace tightened, even as he winced at the thought of the troubles she endured because of her first mate. Dash could see his concern even without feeling the protective aura that surrounded Phoebe. I'm glad you're happy, Dash said, and safe. Rimrock didn't deserve your care and attention, and I'm glad to see Blue Moon treats you much better. Dash glanced at the high-ranking wolves around him with a grateful nod. It didn't make what Rimrock did better, but at least Phoebe had her peace of mind back. With a devoted Jason at her side, she wouldn't suffer again. Thank you, Phoebe smiled. I certainly wouldn't want to go back, but I wouldn't change this. She leaned against Jason, her hand involuntarily settling over her stomach as she thought about the news Mani revealed. Truthfully, Phoebe was still adjusting to the idea, but she couldn't wait until they could see and hear the life growing inside her. Phoebe, Dash hesitated, are you? Her eyes widened, realizing he picked up on her subtle gesture. Oh, yes, at least my wolf is pretty sure, but we're not telling anyone just yet because of everything. Please don't say anything until we confirm it. I don't want everyone to get excited only to be disappointed. Of course, Dash assured her, even as his mind reeled. Jason's embrace tightened his hand, covering hers, as his chest rumbled with a possessive growl. One look was all Dash needed to confirm how protective the alpha already was over the as-of-yet unconfirmed pregnancy and his potential progeny. The royal family was foolish indeed to threaten Blue Moon's Luna. At a knock, Dash jerked to attention. Ben opened the door, allowing the warrior on the other side to enter. Cam nodded respectively before coming up short and staring at the stranger. His nostrils flared and they spoke at the same time. Mate. Luke and Ben raised eyebrows, sharing dubious looks. Jason, too, seemed taken aback, but Phoebe struggled to contain her mirth, sensing the bond flaring between two wolves she viewed as close friends. Dash and Cam looked awestruck, as both had all but given up finding their mates after years of searching. It was almost unfair to know now their mate had been waiting so close in a pack allied to their own. Jason cleared his throat. Cam, this is Dash from Strawberry Moon. He and about 100 warriors were sent by their alpha to bolster our ranks. Dash, this is Cam. He'll be showing you and your warriors the ropes, integrating them with our forces and pairing them up. Any questions or complaints? It didn't seem as if either warrior was listening. Eventually, the pair slowly nodded in acceptance, not that Jason thought they'd protest. Cam suddenly jerked to attention, glancing Jason's way, but his gaze was on Phoebe. Dash followed the gesture a second later. He blushed lightly. Sheepishly, the warriors departed to meet the Strawberry Moon warriors at their doorstep. What did you say? Jason asked, suspicious of his Luna. Nothing, Phoebe chuckled. I just let each of them know the other's favorite foods and a movie idea. Jason stifled a laugh and hugged her tighter. No matter what situation they were surrounded by, she delighted in the formation of new bonds and was eager to see them properly completed. Was that the innate purpose of the Silver Wolf? Well, this should be interesting, Ben said. Why? Phoebe asked. Cam's always had a thing for pretty boys. He's never been attracted to a fellow warrior before, Ben chuckled. Pretty boy, huh? Phoebe repeated. Maybe I should show him some pictures of Dash when we were kids, although I wouldn't want to embarrass Dash. Really? Ben pried. We used to say he was dashing, Phoebe said. Quite a few she-wolves had a crush on him until they found out he wasn't interested. Ben nodded, finding this information hugely interesting. Luke was not nearly as amused, saying, As interesting as this is, we've gotten off topic. Like that message Alpha Zayn sent. Message? Phoebe repeated, looking at Jason. You remember I told you about Ben's sister Christina, right? Yes, Phoebe nodded. It pained her greatly thinking how badly Christina and her mother suffered at the hands of her own father. Phoebe couldn't begin to understand the amount of depravity the male possessed. Had their kind really fallen so far from the moon goddess that they would commit such atrocities? And the goddess still tried to reach out to her wayward children? Well, her mate is Luna Chandler's sister, Jason continued. They both like to travel, so I've employed them as information gatherers and sometimes spies. They sent this message to Strawberry Moon, I assume because they aren't being watched as closely as we are. Alpha Zayn passed it on to us. Reluctantly, Jason handed her the card, allowing her to read it and process the information. Phoebe frowned. She looked up at Jason confused. What exactly did it mean? We're not sure. Jason answered the unasked question. Clearly, Chris and Em didn't want to say too much over an unsecured channel, but whatever they found warranted this message. I don't understand. Phoebe shook her head. For the future, I don't understand. What am I supposed to do? Shh. Jason embraced her, sensing her disquiet through the bond. We're still not sure. We'll know more when they get here. Until then, I'm not taking any chances with your or our pup. He pressed his forehead against hers, feeling through the bond when she settled. Jason kissed her forehead. She was his future, and he would protect it at all costs. The phone blared to life, startling them. Jason cursed under his breath. Couldn't they have a few minutes of peace? Luke picked up the receiver. Blue Moon? Beta Luke speaking? What? Yeah, he's here. Hold on. Let me put you on speaker. When Luke glanced his way, Jason had an immediate sinking feeling. He definitely wasn't going to like this call. Jason nodded, keeping Phoebe close and marshalling his control. Luke nodded. You are on speaker, Prince Nolan. Go ahead. Alpha Jason? Your Highness, Jason answered. Elder Ansel? I'm here, the elder answered, alerting them they were in fact on a conference call. Alpha Jason, greetings. Elder Ansel, Jason frowned, wondering what game the prince was playing. It certainly wasn't his usual style. Good, then we are all here, Prince Nolan sighed. I am issuing an official challenge to Alpha Jason for the right to lead Blue Moon. What? Jason repeated. Your Highness, I don't think you know what you are doing, and I can assure you it is not going to end well for you. I assure you I know exactly what I was doing, Nolan replied. Do you accept this challenge, Alpha Jason? Ansel asked. You may accept or forfeit your position. Jason growled. His mind raced, trying to reason why Nolan would make such a challenge. The second prince had always seemed a reasonable wolf, not prone to the drama of his siblings. He also seemed well aware of his own strength. There wasn't any way he actually thought he stood a chance in this fight, not in a fair duel. Alpha Jason, your answer? Prince Nolan, you understand this will be a duel between the two of us. You will fight with your own strength, no proxies. I understand, and I would have it no other way. Alpha Jason? Ansel prompted again. I accept. Very well, Ansel sighed. As this is a duel among alphas, an arena on neutral ground shall be arranged. You both have a week to prepare yourselves. An elder shall be sent to you in 3 days so that you are aware of the rules. Fine, Alpha Jason agreed. Prince Nolan, you best make your peace with the goddess before we meet. As should you. I'm sorry it came to this, Ansel said before disconnecting. Luke picked up the receiver and set it back on the cradle, massaging his temple. This was certainly not a turn of events he could have predicted. Sue, Ben hesitated. That just happened. What's the plan? Jason breathed in slowly, shoving away his doubts. His questions would solve nothing when there were things to do and tasks they needed to accomplish. I want you to increase patrols and surveillance. Recall non-essential pack members to seek shelter in designated safe houses. Right. Luke nodded before he and Ben departed. Hi. For years they had developed emergency plans in case the pack was attacked. Never in a million years did they imagine ever enacting them, but now was definitely the time. They had allowed the pack to continue as is despite the threat because they didn't want to raise alarm, but now it was time for all to prepare to protect their Luna. Jason, why is this happening? Phoebe shivered. Is it because I'm a silver wolf? It is, isn't it? Am I not even allowed to be happy? Phoebe, shh. Jason gathered her into his arms and quickly settled on the couch to hold and soothe her. Shh, Angel. She shivered in his arms. The feeling through the bond was one of devastation and fear. Her unknown destiny was crushing her under its weight. Let me tell you something, Angel. You deserve all the happiness life can give you, Jason intoned. Bother, and I'm going to make sure you have every moment you are entitled to. But if it weren't for me, if it weren't for you, I'd never known happiness or the joy of being complete, of being a father. You brought all of this to me and to my pack. But I've put them all in danger. No, you haven't. Do you know how many of them have found their fated mate because of you? Noah, Shannon, Cam, your friends Bridget and Dash, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. Have you forgotten Will and Lily? Jason stroked her cheeks, wiping away tears. That's what you do. You bring wolves together, and anyone who can't see that is a fool. I won't allow anyone to disrupt your mission or our family. I will keep you safe. But this duel, I don't know what Nolan is thinking. He knows he can't win. Jason shook his head. Not in a fair duel. I don't understand. Phoebe shook her head, snuggling into his chest. I'm stronger than him. A lot stronger. I promise you, he can't win this fight. Really? I already stipulated no proxies, which means he has to fight on his own. The ledges will ensure a fair duel, probably line the arena with silver, so we can't receive help from outside. We will monitor security to ensure no one can interfere. I promise you there is no scenario in which I don't win. Phoebe huddled against him, slowly calming under his caresses and surrounded by his scent. Jason sighed. He wasn't sure what the royal family was thinking, picking a fight they had no chance at winning. Regardless of how they felt about silver wolves, they had to know they were heading down the path of destruction by challenging him and his pack. At the very least, he thought Prince Nolan was smarter than that. Jason? Phoebe asked, sensing his wandering thoughts. I just wish I knew what the prince was thinking. He knows he can't win. I always thought he was smarter than his brother. This challenge isn't like him. It isn't? No. Nolan has always been straightforward. He doesn't like playing games. That's usually his brother's purview. This challenge stinks of Aiken. In fact, the more he thought about it, the more it felt like the first prince had taken control of the chessboard. Right now, he was arranging his pieces and preparing his attack. Aiken likes games, but he also hates direct confrontation. He prefers to stab you in the back, and he hates getting his hands dirty, Jason explained. He probably put Nolan up to this somehow, maybe forcing his hand. Phoebe frowned. She didn't know much about the royal family, and what she did know left much to be desired. This could also be a distraction, Jason said. A smokescreen to keep us busy while he does something else. What else could he do? Phoebe asked. Jason growled, holding her tight as the rumors swirling around the first prince ran through his mind. It was well known no one survived a night with him, and the condition of the remains of those same unfortunates was a thing of nightmares. Just imaging Phoebe's body so mangled that it was unrecognizable caused his aura to spike. He would not allow such a depraved soul anywhere near her. Jason? Phoebe stroked his cheek, hoping to calm his wave of possessiveness swirling around them. She knew it was from fear of losing her, but she hated to see him in such a worked-up state. Jason? Sorry, Angel, Jason sighed, trying to marshal his control. He hugged her close and breathed in her scent to chase away the phantom images in his mind. Phoebe leaned against him, stroking his cheek with her fingers. Promise me, you won't take any chances and you won't go anywhere alone, Jason said. I promise. Good. I don't know what the royal family is planning, but I will protect you. I know you will. Jason waited at the door for their guest. Border patrols alerted him several minutes ago that the escort vehicle had arrived. He was too anxious to remain in his office, so stood beside Luke to meet the arrival. The past 4 days had been one of turmoil for both him and Phoebe. His anxiousness was transmitting through their bond, affecting her. During the day, she kept herself busy, but at night she clung to him, needing his warmth and reassurance. He was certainly willing to provide all she wanted, but he worried her stress would affect the pup. Dr. Evans assured him it was still early and that the pup would be fine. Werewolf pregnancies tended to develop faster than with humans. Still, the first trimester progressed at about the same rate, which meant Phoebe's first scan wouldn't be for another few weeks. The doctor also took blood samples to run tests on her hormone levels, which she said were inconclusive. However, she also assured him that Phoebe's wolf was the surest gauge of her pregnancy. She had yet to see a pregnancy confirmed by a wolf proven false, so though they hadn't yet confirmed it medically, he was nonetheless assured they would be welcoming a pup very soon. Monitoring Phoebe's well-being became his greatest distraction. He made sure to attend every meal to ensure she ate properly, and he wasn't alone. The change started subtly, but the kitchen staff was making concerted efforts to ensure all her meals had proper vitamins and minerals to support the growth of a healthy pup. Phoebe thought it was too much special care, but nothing she said dampened their enthusiasm. Blake and Emma had been quick to pick up on the changes, and once Nora informed them Phoebe was expecting, they quickly jumped on the bandwagon. They had a never-ending stream of questions about the pup and when it would be born. When they weren't asking questions, they were making suggestions. Goddess only knows where they heard such things. They were sponges, and now that they knew a sibling was on the way, their ears were tuned to every conversation mentioning babies. Phoebe was exasperated by all the extra attention, but it also helped to distract her from the challenge looming over them. It distracted Jason, too, thinking about what it would be like once she started showing and he would be able to caress her round belly. He couldn't wait until he could hear the pup's heartbeat and her scent changed. While Phoebe and her wolf would be able to bond with the pup as it developed, Jason would have to build his connection later. The first step was when her scent changed. It would take on notes of the pup's scent so he would be able to recognize it from the moment it was born. Lobo was already wondering what delicious scent would alert them to their pup's presence. Perhaps a citrus scent that would complement Phoebe's. In fact, his wolf grew less and less concerned about the challenge every day, preferring to focus on their pup. But Jason couldn't completely forget about the royal family's plans, and the more he thought about them, the more concerned he became. No matter how he looked at it, Delilah's sudden appearance and Nolan's challenge seemed to be part of a larger plan. He was also quite certain it wasn't the king's doing. The king simply didn't have the patience or constitution for such a layered attack. He was far more emotional and impulsive. However, there was one wolf close to the king that was uniquely predisposed to conspiracies, Prince Aken. But why? Prince Aken had no respect for his father, so Jason highly doubted he was motivated by filial loyalty. Aken didn't respect anyone or bond and thrived on causing strife. Was this just another game to get under Jason's skin? Trying to figure out Aken's true aim was far more difficult than the king. Jason still wasn't sure why the king was so fixated on Phoebe, but he would know soon. They had received a message from Christina that she and Emily landed safely and were on their way. He expected them any day now, hoping their movements were still under the royal family's radar. Once they arrived with their report, the mystery surrounding the king would be solved, and he could focus solely on Aken. Jace, Luke prompted, drawing his attention to the approaching vehicle. It pulled up beside the pack house, and the escort exited, allowing their occupant to disembark. Jason wasn't certain which elder they would send, but felt a note of relief when he saw the familiar visage of Elder Ansel. Though he had a good relationship with most of the elders, Jason had to admit his rapport with Ansel was better than most. Each elder generally focused on certain regions and often became very familiar with the packs living within that region, attending special events and officiating many. That meant Ansel was a familiar presence since Jason could remember. Or perhaps it had to do with the fact Ansel was originally a Blue Moon Pack member from before his grandfather's time. After he lost his fated mate, he devoted his time and energy to the werewolf community. Elder, Jason reached out to shake his hand. Alpha Jason, I am sorry it came to this. Let's discuss it in my office. Jason turned, leading him down the halls. So, how is Rimrock doing? Ansel raised a brow at his attempt to make small talk. It was an odd subject to choose, but he also had no reason to hold back information. Beta Michael is now Alpha Michael, and he has found his fated mate. His newly appointed Beta and Gamma are helping him regain control of the pack. Is that a fact? Indeed. It will be a while before Rimrock can recapture its status, but it should recover. Ansel nodded. Good. If he needs any help, warrior training, even alone, I don't mind. I shall pass your words on to him. He will probably be happy with the training, but I don't think he will take a loan. He said he wanted to re-establish Rimrock's businesses without incurring debt, but he will be grateful for the offer. Jason nodded, ushering him into the office, and directed him to one of the chairs before taking his own seat. He had been anxious to begin, but now that the elder was there, he was hesitant. Luke poured drinks before taking a station by the door to ensure they weren't interrupted. "Luna Phoebe is not joining us?" Ansel asked. "She's teaching a music lesson at the moment," Jason said, feeling her contentment through the bond. "She hasn't been sleeping well with everything that is happening. I'd rather not disturb her if it is not necessary." Ansel nodded. He could understand Jason's reluctance. After waiting for his fated mate for so long, Ansel had hoped Jason would be able to simply enjoy his new status. In fact, he hoped the next communication he received from Blue Moon was an announcement on the birth of pups. "So what has been decided?" Jason asked. "We've rented a stadium from the humans," Ansel said. "It was a lot easier than building our own. It's in Calgary, neutral territory for you both. The arena will be prepared with a ring which will be lined with silver to ensure neither of you will receive aid from outside during the actual duel. As the challenged party, you will have to decide whether you two will fight in your human form or as wolves." That was nothing Jason didn't already expect. He had already stipulated no proxies, no Nolan would have to fight for himself. Once the duel starts, it can only end in one of three ways. Either one of you yields, is too injured to fight, or death. Jason nodded. Once again, it was no secret to him. As this was an officially sanctioned challenge, there will be no repercussions leveled against you or Blue Moon in the event of Prince Nolan's death. Jason raised an eyebrow at that. He had forgotten there were laws protecting the royal family's health and safety. However, all such rules were null and void when it came to official challenges and duels. "So there is no reason to hold back," Ansel said, "now, in the event Prince Nolan wins." "He won't. In the event that he does, he won't. In the highly unlikely event the prince is the victor," Ansel said. "Your pack will have to swear fealty to him immediately, which is why your high-ranking members must be present. You obviously cannot leave your oratory unguarded, so you can choose whether your beta or gamma will be there." Jason let out a slow breath. "In addition to your Luna, of course." "What?" Jason snapped to attention. "Luna Phoebe must be in attendance. Phoebe is not going anywhere near this duel. She's not leaving our territory." "Alpha, she's not going," Jason glared, his aura suddenly flaring. "Alpha," Ansel winced, "you can assign her as many guards as you like." "She's not going." Luke frowned, wondering if he should intervene. Could he even rein in his Alpha? Perhaps it was best to call for Phoebe. Suddenly he was thrown forward as the door burst open. "I don't care what meeting the Alpha is in, this has to do with the fate of werewolf kind," Christina declared as she pushed her way in, only to stop short when she saw Jason's company. "Chris," Jason said evenly, "you remember Elder Ansel. Hello, Emily." "Alpha," the other she-wolf greeted, shooting her impatient mate a look. "We're sorry for the intrusion. We'll come back later." "Wait, please," Ansel stood. "Did you just say you have information on the fate of wolfkind?" Emily and Christina hesitated, glancing at Jason. He rubbed his temples, considering his next words carefully. This was his territory, and they were pack members on a sanctioned fact-finding mission, so he was well within his right to order Ansel out. It was pack business, yet Christina's words rang in his mind, as did their earlier warning. What if the implications were far beyond just his own pack? If so, he would need the council on his side. "Elder Ansel, take a seat. Chris, you too." Jason gestured to the couch. They sat side by side, apprehensive at the way his aura fluctuated. He glanced at Luke, reaching out for Phoebe. "Phoebe? Jason, is something wrong? Your aura is all over the place. Could you join me in the office, please?" "Of course." Jason let out an uneasy breath. He had no idea if he was doing the right thing, but he knew he needed his Luna. Lobo was prowling his mind like a caged animal, and they needed Phoebe's presence to calm them, or they wouldn't be able to think straight. Jason pinched the bridge of his nose, trying to stave off the beginning of a headache. The door opened, and the smell of lilac and sage wafted toward him as Phoebe entered. She glanced quickly around the room, recognizing Ansel, but most concerning to her was Jason's aura. He had been anxious for days, and his wolf restless. No doubt the elder was here to discuss the approaching duel, but first thing was first. Without a word, she went to Jason, embracing him as his arms wrapped around her. He bowed his head, breathing in her scent as his wolf finally relaxed. They stood forehead to forehead, letting his aura settle. Once he took a breath, he sat and pulled her into his lap. She didn't protest, knowing he needed her close to keep him and his wolf calm. "Phoebe, you remember Elder Ansel." Jason slowly reclaimed his control. Phoebe acknowledged him before turning her attention to the she-wolves. "You haven't met yet, but this is Christina and Emily." "Oh, hello," Phoebe smiled at them. "Ben and Lucy have told me so much about you." "Luna," the pair smiled in return, studying their Luna. She was as petite and pretty as they had been told, but it was her aura that rendered them speechless. It was calm and all-encompassing. It swirled around them like a gentle breeze. Their wolves curled up, enjoying the peace resonating within. "Churst and Em like to travel, so they often gather information for me," Jason said as some sort of explanation to Ansel. "Chris, Em, Elder Ansel is here to discuss my upcoming duel." "Duel?" Emily repeated. That was news to them. Prince Nolan challenged Jason for his title and control of Blue Moon, Luke told them, letting the implications sink in. "Yes, and as I was explaining, because this duel is for the Alpha title, Blue Moon's high-ranking members have to be present, including his Luna." Jason growled, "Phoebe is not going anywhere near it." "Shh." Phoebe hushed, running her hand through his hair. Jason sighed, leaning into her touch, letting her soothe him and his wolf. Ansel watched, slowly relaxing. Only moments ago, Jason was practically enraged, and now he was docile as a kitten. Well, maybe not quite that docile. "If Jason is risking his pack, what is the prince risking?" Emily asked. "Well, I mean, fair is fair," she looked to the elder. "I don't think you appreciate the gravity of the situation at all." "I'm afraid I don't understand," Ansel said. "Chris and Em have been gathering information for me, and apparently an informant of theirs told them about a rumor concerning the royal family, certainly one I never heard before." He nodded for them to continue. Being of calmer mind, Emily explained, "A few generations ago, the Wolf King sought a consultation with a witch seer. Supposedly his grandmother had made a future prediction and he wanted to confirm it." Ansel raised an eyebrow at that, but didn't interrupt. "There is almost no record of this happening, but we did manage to track down the coven he most likely visited. When we got there, the Reverend Mother confirmed the rumor is based on actual events. In fact, her grandmother was the seer he saw. Apparently, witches don't record their predictions, so what she told him was never written down. However, after he left, she made another prediction and instructed her daughters to pass it down. She said there would come a day that other wolves would visit asking about the king, and when they did, they were to be told, the line will end in white and a new one will begin in silver." "What is that supposed to mean?" Luke snorted. "That was my reaction," Christina seconded, "but Em thinks she figured it out." "It was a prediction made to wolves, so I believe it is about us," Emily explained, "specifically white and silver wolves. Both are rare, so what are the chances for there to be one of each at the same time?" "So you think it's about Selena and me?" Phoebe said, "but what line are they referring to?" "I think it means the royal line," Emily said. "Selena is the last of the king's progeny, and none of her siblings have pups of their own. Hence the royal line ends with the white wolf. And a new one begins in silver," Phoebe repeated, her hand settling over her stomach. "Could it be?" "Mani, is what she said true?" "Maybe. I don't know." Phoebe could feel her wolf's uncertainty and knew there was no deception. But how? Why? Was this the goddess's plan? Instead of replacing werewolves with another creature as she did lichens, she intended to replace the royal lineage? Just start over? "Now, let's not jump to conclusions," Ansel advised. "After all, this could be considered treason." "Treason? Are you kidding me?" Christina snapped. "You think tossing out scum is treason? What about a king that kills his own mate because he's impatient to have another pup and steals another wolf's mate? What about a prince that tortures his bed partners and kills them for kicks, including his own mate? Are you telling me that sick and depraved family deserves to sit on the throne they built out of blood? I say it's time they were tossed out. The goddess herself declares it's time to start over. So let's wipe the slate clean and get on with it. Chris?" "No, I'm tired of all these kings and princes and alphas who think they can do whatever they please and there are no consequences. They torture their mates, then reject them and cast them aside like garbage when the only real trash is them. Are we wolves or aren't we? Do we follow the moon goddess or don't we?" Christina suddenly leapt to her feet. I say, let's go, Jace. You're one of the few alphas who isn't a raging duck. You got my vote. A counter-challenge? Luke suddenly spoke. If they want your alpha title, then they can put up their crown. Whether they do or not, when you beat Nolan, they are going to lose face, so why not make them bleed? Can Jason really do that? Phoebe asked. It's not completely without precedent, Ansel said. I believe humans call it upping the ante, but it's a risk. Riskier than taking his Luna into neutral territory where the wolves threatening her life are waiting to pounce? Luke asked. Jason's aura spiked. Phoebe continued running her fingers through his hair. She leaned close, kissing his cheek. Her presence soothed him and he relaxed. It's your call, Alpha, Luke said. What do you want to do? Situated well beyond busy downtown was a community of exclusive estates and manicured lawns known as Mount Royal. It was the sanctuary for the city's most elite residences and included numerous vacation homes for the upper crust of society. Some homes looked almost like castles, while others were sleek, modern homes. Among these was a quiet estate tucked in the southeast corner. It was a particularly large estate surrounded by an imposing stone wall and encompassed not just the house and a large yard, but also quite a few trees, almost like a mini forest. For as long as anyone in the neighborhood could remember, the gate had always been closed, though they occasionally noticed the small staff going about its business to maintain the property. High-tech cameras maintained surveillance, and very rarely a neighbor sometimes spotted a lone figure patrolling the grounds. Every now and again they heard howls and sometimes found a paw print in the snow, indicating their security patrols also utilized attack dogs. One neighbor claimed to have seen a dog, but most thought he was crazy, claiming the beast was as large as a man. It was just one more story to be traded among the neighbors, and the legend of the estate continued to grow as it stood empty season after season. More than once prospective buyers approached hoping to make an offer, but they were turned away at the gate. Once or twice, particularly stubborn solicitors attempted to climb the wall. Those that managed the feat were soon sent running and later told stories of monstrous beasts and murderous figures with glowing eyes. Some even claimed the place was haunted. Many neighborhood kids enjoyed passing along stories of murder, lust, and revenge, each story more elaborate than the last to entertain themselves as they speculated why the house remained seemingly abandoned. Then, suddenly, the estate became alive. Windows were opened and stagnant air chased out. Groundskeepers and security personnel descended on the area, checking every inch of the perimeter wall. Neighbors watched, wondering if this flurry of activity meant the master of the house would finally make an appearance. They didn't have to wait long. 2 hours after the activity began, a motorcade of identical black SUVs arrived, pulling up to the estate's front door. A few moments later, a young man exited the second vehicle. He was the epitome of tall, dark, and handsome, and the dream figure so many women wished to sweep them off their feet and carry them away. Several women watching him now wondered if they would be able to meet him if they brought over a welcome to the neighborhood dessert. Their hopes were dashed moments later as he circled the vehicle and helped a petite young woman exit next. Her mane of wavy, dark hair flowed out from under her cream beret. She smiled prettily at him as he pulled her close and kissed her deeply with no shame in front of their audience. The smile on his face made it clear he was completely smitten with his young bride. If there were any lingering doubts, he swept them away as he suddenly lifted her off her feet and into his arms, carrying her across the threshold like a new bride. Her laughter echoed in the cool air, and she didn't seem the least bit embarrassed by the staff and escort watching them. "Welcome to Calgary," Luke said as they entered the foyer. Christina and Emily trailed a step behind, watching their alpha carry his Luna like a newlywed bride. Neither had ever seen him smile as broadly or as much as he when he held his Luna. There was no sign of his usual melancholy, even with the duel hanging over his head. Reluctantly, Jason set Phoebe on her feet. Regardless of the reason brought them, he was happy to be there with her. "So how many estates does Blue Moon own?" Phoebe asked, letting her gaze drift, taking in the stonework and tapestries featuring wolves and forests. It had a stately feel and yet also a modern aesthetic, which made for an interesting dynamic. I have no idea, to be honest, Jason chuckled, holding her close. Over the centuries, Blue Moon had invested and collected numerous properties around the world. Some were safe houses and emergency bunkers. Others were extended pieces of the pack, providing housing for wolves who preferred a smaller pack environment while also ensuring the home territory didn't become overcrowded. The estates also made for vacation homes, allowing high-ranked members to relax in a secure environment away from the pack for a time. Once all of this is over, I'll take you and the pups to someplace warm, a real island getaway, just us. Sounds good, Phoebe smiled, snuggling into him. Jason sighed, a possessive growl rumbling in his chest. He hoped to take Phoebe and the pups to one for a special holiday getaway. It had been disheartening to leave them behind a second time, but with the duel and threat posed by the royal family, he couldn't risk it. Bad enough he had to bring Phoebe. He couldn't place their pups in danger too. Lucille and his mother had orders to protect them at all costs and make sure the pups escaped unharmed if things went south. Jason knew he would win this fight, but he still wasn't sure what Achan was planning. With Jason and Luke away, the pack territory was vulnerable to attack, as did the fact they took a portion of their forces to secure the Calgary estate. Luckily, the extra warriors from Strawberry Moon helped in that regard, but he still didn't know from which direction to expect attack. His instincts told him Achan would focus on Phoebe. The prince had little interest and even less skill when it came to managing a territory or pack. There was only one thing Achan was interested in, and Jason would be damned before he let the prince lay a finger on Phoebe. He couldn't let himself be distracted, so measures were in place to ensure he wouldn't need to be consulted before action was taken. Now he could focus entirely on Phoebe. To that end, every member of her personal guard was in attendance, as well as Cam, Dash, and half of the Strawberry Moon warriors along with their Blue Moon partners. Luke and Mona were with him, as well as Christina and Emily. All four were capable warriors with tested loyalty. They would not need to be told how to react in the moment. They would think for and act for themselves. And all had one imperative: protect Phoebe. Jason lay in bed with Phoebe tucked against him. Her breathing was even, and she was relaxed in a deep sleep. He nuzzled her and breathed in her calming scent. His hand gently caressed her stomach. 2 more weeks and they would finally have definitive confirmation. By that time, her scent should also start changing, and the pup would seem that much more real. Emily's revelation replayed through his mind. Could it really be true? He had to admit her interpretation had its attraction. Jason never thought about being king. It was more responsibility and work, of which he had enough. However, if it would protect Phoebe and ensure their pup's future, he wouldn't hesitate to snatch it. He would take everything away from the royal family, including their lives, to protect his Luna, prophecy, or no prophecy. Phoebe sighed. She stretched and leaned against him before settling back to sleep. Jason tightened his embrace and snuggled her close. She was his life, his world, and no one would take her away from him. Lobo stirred with a growl. Yes, mate, ours. They will regret coming after her. The motorcade arrived at its destination, but the occupants didn't disembark immediately. Warriors preceded them, securing the area before giving the all-clear. Jason exited first, assessing his surroundings with a critical eye before reaching in and helping Phoebe out. She was nervous and gripped his hands tightly as they headed inside. Garrison preceded them and Luke followed behind. But they weren't the first pack members to arrive. Christina and Emily arrived several hours ahead with a team to recon the area. Where they were now, Jason didn't know, but he also didn't need to. They had their mission, as did the spotters covering the arena and surrounding area. Jason only needed to worry about one thing. Ansel met them at the entrance to the grandstand and led them into the large area in front of the tall, covered bleachers. This was the site for many exciting events, including the annual rodeo stampede. But today was a unique spectacle reserved for wolves alone. The grandstand was filled with onlookers and witnesses from various packs, even quite a few alphas. Everyone wanted to be there to witness the outcome. They stepped out into the arena where 2 booths had been set up for the opponents. Between these boxes was a circular area mapped out and prepared for the combatants. Phoebe nervously glanced at the circle, but Jason barely acknowledged it as he escorted her to her seat. Instead of having her sit, he continued to hold her, savoring every last moment he could before the start of the duel. He nuzzled her, breathed in her scent, and held it deep in his lungs. "Jason, promise me you'll win," Phoebe whispered. "I promise." Jason smiled, resting his forehead on hers and rubbing noses. "I'll win, and after I do, we'll take a real vacation. You, me, and the pups. Just us." "Sounds good," Phoebe smiled. He stroked her cheeks. There were other surprises back at the pack he was eager to show her. Her room was finally completed. Phoebe would have a special room all to herself to relax and read away from the pressures of the pack. The second surprise he was even more excited to reveal. When she was preparing the music room for the pups, she had gone through all her belongings that had been stored since her arrival. The piano and lesson books had naturally been moved into the pack house, and she debated keeping the books, not knowing Jason was working on her special room. The one thing she wasn't attached to was the furniture, and suggested they donate it. Jason had agreed, though, secretly kept every last piece for his special surprise. Before they left for Calgary, he had been informed it was all ready. He couldn't wait to surprise her. "Alpha Jason?" Jason growled at the interruption, but he raised his head and kissed Phoebe's forehead. He kept his thoughts focused and his aura under control, as much to keep himself calm as to reassure her. This was just another day, just another task. "Luke, she'll be safe, Alpha," Luke assured him. Jason took one final look at Phoebe with a reassuring smile before stepping away. As he turned, he shoved away his concerns to focus solely on the task at hand. He hated to do it, but it's what he needed to do to get through it. He approached the prepared area and stood on the edge. His mind buzzed, sensing the silver. He looked to the opposing booth where the royal family was enthroned. Jason barely noted the king and queen. His gaze swept over them and settled on Aiken. The first prince smirked, sensing his scrutiny. Jason narrowed his gaze before shifting it to Nolan as the second prince stepped out of the box and approached. Surprisingly, the prince didn't seem nervous. In fact, he looked forlorn, resigned. Jason was fairly certain the prince didn't expect to survive this. Was he really willing to throw his life away for this? "Nolan, make me proud," the king called. "Jason," Selena waved, coyly smiling. Jason didn't spare her a single glance, turning his attention to Ansel, who stood between him and Nolan. Since this was his region of expertise, it seemed he was chosen as the official MC for the event. The elder spared each of them a glance before looking to the audience. "We are here to witness a duel for the Alpha title of Blue Moon. Alpha, Jason, has accepted the challenge of Prince Nola. Is that correct, Alpha Jason?" "Yes, although I do have something to say," Jason said. "It appears to me that I am risking far more than His Highness, my title, my pack, my Luna, and my life. His Highness only risks his life, so why not make it even? I'm placing my title on the line. The king could at least put his throne on the line. What do you say, Your Highness? The winner becomes your successor." Ansel maintained a veneer of surprise and looked to the king. "What say you, Your Highness?" "A challenge has been issued." "Well," the king hesitated, "this is highly irregular. The challenge has already been accepted. I believe humans call it upping the ante," Ansel said. "Of course, if the king refuses, I understand," Jason taunted. "After all, his line is not known for their courage." Nolan stared incredulously at Jason, who he always viewed as a reasonable wolf. Why would he deliberately taunt the king who was not known for his patience? Snarling, the king leapt to his feet. "You dare! Fine, I declare the winner of this duel shall be my successor." Jason's mouth twitched with a smile as his gaze shifted to Aiken. The first prince seemed genuinely perplexed by Jason's sudden challenge. It appeared he wasn't expecting it and had not planned for it. "Good. The challenge has been accepted," Ansel said. "For this duel, the winner shall be Alpha of Blue Moon, as well as the rightful successor for the throne of the Wolf King." Murmurs trickled through the crowd, but Jason felt no resentment or pushback from it either. The crowd certainly seemed more invested now that the stakes were higher, but that hardly mattered. Jason still wasn't sure what the alleged prophecy was really about, but there wasn't anything he wouldn't do to protect Phoebe and their pup. If that meant being king, then he would be king. "Alpha Jason, Do you wish to battle as wolves or in human form? Ansel asked. Wolves, Jason answered without hesitation. That was the one point he had never wavered or wondered about. When they fought in human form, they could call on their wolves for added strength and agility. But it was only in their wolf form that their true power was unleashed. If anyone wanted to challenge him, it would be at his full strength. There would be no room for debate in the outcome. Just a moment, the king said, gesturing a servant who brought a tray with a pair of wine glasses. Let's drink in solidarity. Nolan accepted his glass, and the servant moved to Jason and offered the other glass. Jason looked at it with no emotion, knowing exactly what the king was attempting to do, and it had nothing to do with solidarity. Picking up the glass, he looked at it. His gaze went back to the king, who held up another glass. Without a word, Jason tipped it upside down and poured the contents on the ground. Lobo snarled, his mind sensing the trace amounts of wolfsbane mixed within it. The king frowned at Jason's open dismissal. Their audience as well was surprised. However, most agreed with Jason's action. They knew all too well the king never served drinks that were wolfsbane-free. Jason needed to be at the top of his game and could not allow any weakness. He removed his jacket and shirt, tossing it to one of his warriors waiting on standby. Kicking off his shoes, Jason stepped into the ring. As Jason removed his jacket and shirt, Phoebe felt their mind link open. Angel, I am going to do everything to win, so I can't let myself to be distracted. I love you with everything I have. Phoebe struggled to hold in a gasp as his love poured through their bond until it practically pulsed. It radiated through her like a warm light before suddenly shutting down. She could feel nothing through their bond. It was like a door suddenly slammed shut, and now an insurmountable wall separated them. Phoebe wanted to reach out, but Monty stopped her. No, we mustn't. Mate said he was going to do everything to win. We mustn't distract him. I know, I just hate feeling him shut himself off. Phoebe fought a shudder. It wasn't just their bond he was suppressing. He was shutting down every emotion, every connection, and she couldn't stand it. Jason was so warm, so caring. She couldn't stand him shutting everything and one out. It's okay, Monty whispered. Mate loves us. You felt it. He is doing this because he loves us, and when he is done, he will let us feel it again. Right. Phoebe held on to that. Yes, Jason was only doing what he felt was needed to win the fight, and after that he would come back to her. Luna, Luke gently directed her to her seat. Phoebe sat beside Mona trying to keep herself calm, but it was a struggle. Without a word, Mona gripped her hand and squeezed while they watched. Nolan. Phoebe gave a startled jerk at the harsh shout. Her gaze fell on the king, then to the second prince. Like Jason, he was removing his jacket and shirt, but much more deliberately and reluctantly. Despite the fact he initiated the challenge, he clearly didn't want to be there. He looked up at his father's beckoning. Win this, the king bellowed. Nolan gave his father a short, curt nod. His gaze lingered on those in the royal box before he turned and entered the ring. The crowd's energy spiked in preparation. For decades, everyone wondered what a fight between Jason and one of the princes would be, and now they were finally going to bear witness. It was the battle royale they had all taken bets and discussed on more than one occasion. Phoebe's attention remained on the royal family. The queen was pale and grim, watching her son with a note of sadness. Beside her, the princess didn't spare her brother a glance and kept waving in hopes of attracting Jason's attention. The king, on the other hand, turned a venomous glare on her, but she expected that, and it didn't bother her as much as it once did. After hearing Christina and Emily's reports, she thought she understood the king better. Now that she understood where his hate came from, she could ignore it. The royal family really had no one to blame but themselves. For centuries they lived decadently, neglecting their fated mates with no remorse. What else could they expect? Did they really think the goddess would ignore it? If they were worried about a prophecy, why didn't they take measures against it? It was the definition of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Her gaze passed over him and landed on the first prince, who smirked when he noticed her attention. He licked her lips and even kissed the air as if that was somehow appealing to her. She frowned, and her gaze did not linger on him a moment longer, shifting to the final presence in the box. He had a darker complexion and didn't seem to be a part of the royal family. Luke? Luna? He glanced at her questioningly, not sure why she wanted to talk when the fight was about to begin. Who is that standing beside the first prince? Luke glanced at the royal box. Beta Corwin. Beta? Yes, he's the son of the king's Beta. I believe he is one of the prince's assistants. I see. Phoebe nodded, turning her attention to the ring as the second prince stepped in. Mani, you felt it, right? Yes. There is definitely a connection. But I thought the prince hadn't found his mate. Maybe that's what he wants everyone to think. And maybe someone found out that shouldn't. Phoebe's gaze flickered back to the first prince. Jason said he was conniving and dangerous. Mate is not wrong, Mani growled. His wolf is dead. He no longer has a sane mind. He is unhinged. Luna, are you all right? Luke asked, sensing her anxiety spike. I think the Beta is the second prince's mate, Phoebe said. And I think the first prince knows. Luke's eyebrow shot up, as did Mona's. For security, she and Luke maintained an open link, allowing Phoebe's communication to reach her. That explains a lot, Mona said. The king would never allow a union that wouldn't bear pups. They could adopt. According to law, adopted pups can't be named successors or be included in the family lineage. Why? If I remember correctly, I think it was an issue several generations back with a half-sibling suddenly appearing to challenge for the throne. After that, the laws changed, so only those born of the king and reigning queen could succeed the throne, barring a challenge like this one, of course. It's a matter of historical record, of course, so Luna Cleo probably knows all the details. Mona is right. The only reason the king hasn't named a successor is because none of his progeny has produced a viable heir, Luke agreed. Bloodline is all that matters. If he knew what you suspect, he'd put the Beta to death right now. What about the fact the first prince killed his own wolf? Phoebe asked. What? Mona suddenly jerked to attention. Are you sure? My wolf is. She says he is unhinged. Shit, Luke cursed. They knew Akon was dangerous, but this was a much more serious situation. If his wolf was truly dead, then the prince no longer operate logically, and he would not be easy to predict. It makes sense, Mona said. Rumors have it he killed his own fated mate. The shock alone could have killed his wolf, not to mention his nightly escapades. Only a wolf gone completely insane can do what he has done to so many. He shouldn't even be functioning, Luke frowned. Without a wolf, he shouldn't be thinking rationally. You think he is rational? Mona scoffed. He's fixated, but nothing he does is logical except to him. He is psychotic, and he'll keep going until he reaches his endgame or he is stopped. What is his endgame? Phoebe asked. Jason, Luke sighed. If there is any wolf he is gunning for, it is Jason, and he won't stop until he takes everything away from him. We have to warn him. We can't, Luke shook his head. He's in the ring. We can't reach him. Mani, can we? Phoebe asked, hoping their immunity to silver applied to mind-linking. Yes, but we can't distract him now. Phoebe looked to the ring to see Jason shift, becoming his massive brown wolf. She felt Mani surge forward, eager to see and appreciate her mate's physique. On the other side of the arena, the prince also shifted into a tannish-gray wolf. It was not nearly as large, but had a wiry-looking frame, which meant he was quick and agile. No sooner had their paws touched the ground, they were leaping on the attack. Phoebe winced at the impact. The prince swiped a paw at Jason, only for him to tear into his shoulder. It had only been a few seconds, and already they were spilling blood, staining the dirt of the arena floor. We have to stop them. We can't, Luke placed a hand on her shoulder. But the prince is being forced to fight. His mate is being held hostage. Phoebe, Mona gripped her hand. The challenge was issued and accepted. It doesn't matter why. If we interfere, Jason loses automatically. Mani, she's right. We have to let this play out. Trust in mate. He will win. But if he kills the prince, trust in mate. As soon as Lobo's paws touched the ground, he was out for blood, and Jason wasn't holding him back. Once the prince's wolf was on its feet, it leaped forward and attacked. The prince swiped at him, but Lobo barely felt the claws through his thick fur as he sank his teeth into the gray shoulder. Though they had shut down their bond and turned off their emotions, Jason still felt Phoebe's rising anxiety even after he stepped into the ring. The silver should have cut them off completely, but somehow he still felt her. He wasn't sure if their bond was simply that strong or if it was an effect of Phoebe being a silver wolf. She was worried. She wanted to reach out to him for reassurance, but she was holding back, and he couldn't afford to split his concentration. It was killing him to keep this distance between them, but he had to focus. This was about protecting her. He was counting on Luke and Mona to be there and support her. "Be patient, Angel. I'm coming back to you." Jason could only hope she would forgive him. Lobo shoved the prince aside and they circled each other before charging in again. The prince was smaller with a lanky build that spoke of a wolf focused on speed. It was clear his goal was short, quick strikes trying to wear down Jason's stamina. Lobo snarled at the thought they would crumple so easily. They were a big wolf, but they were also fast. As they charged, Lobo suddenly veered and spun around to grab at the scruff of the prince's neck, then threw him to the ground. They were rewarded with a pained yelp. He lifted the prince up and slammed him down again, hearing a satisfying crunch, and knew he succeeded in breaking ribs before wringing him into the ground before he tossed him aside. The prince yelped again before dragging himself to his feet to face Jason again. Lobo prowled the perimeter of the circle, watching with shining amber eyes. There was something off about his opponent. The prince didn't seem to be fighting for his life in the slightest. As soon as he was on his feet, the prince charged again. Lobo pulled back at the last moment, then sank his teeth into the prince's haunches. He dragged him back into the center of the ring. But Lobo would not allow the prince to set a single claw outside the ring until he was finished. He slammed the prince into the ground again and wrung him before flipping him over and tossing him aside again. Lobo backed off, watching his enemy as the prince struggled to rise to his feet. What is wrong with him? Jason couldn't help but wonder. Why wasn't the prince taking this seriously? Did he not want to win? What was the point of challenging him if Nolan simply intended to throw his life away? Did he even want to survive? The prince struggled to get his feet under him for another charge as his gaze looked longingly at the royal box. It was only a moment, but nothing was lost to Lobo's gaze. Despite the risk, he also glanced at the gathered royalty. Why was the prince fixated on them? The king wasn't even looking at the fight. His hate-filled gaze was centered on Phoebe, a fact he would pay for once this duel was over. The queen kept her head hung low while the princess acted like she was on holiday, waving to Jason whenever she thought his gaze lingered in her direction. Behind them, the first prince had his leering gaze trained in the same direction as the king. He was another that would have a short life. There was only one person watching the fight, and that was Beta Corwin. The Beta was watching with the intensity of a lover or a mate. The realization made Lobo stumble, and he almost missed the prince's next attack. Luckily, he recovered quickly and ducked at the last moment, snapping at the prince's leg and sinking his teeth into flesh. With a growl, Lobo yanked him around and whipped his head to snap the prince's limb before backing off again. Mates? Were the second prince and Beta mates? Was that the hold the first prince had to force his bother to challenge him? If the king knew, the Beta would not still be alive, so it had to be the prince. Phoebe. Yes, that was why she was so anxious. She had the innate ability to sense the mating bonds of others, even broken ones. There was no way she would have missed this connection. If the prince died, the Beta would crumple as the bond, even incomplete, severed. If the prince didn't die, the Beta certainly would. The first prince was at least as ruthless as his father and would not tolerate failure. Lobo allowed a moment of pity for them as the prince struggled to his feet, one paw hanging. The prince would not forfeit. He was willing to trade his life for his mate. Jason could respect that, but he was also fighting for his mate. He would not lose. There was only one way to end this. Only one way he would allow it to end. And it was time to end it. The prince staggered as he gasped for breath and gathered himself. There was a pained look in his gaze as the crushing reality of never being able to claim his mate fell on him. But in order for his mate to live and have a second chance, he had no other choice. He had managed to warn Corwin beforehand and told, regardless of the outcome of this duel, to run. Run and live. Gathering himself, Nolan lunged once again, going for Jason's throat and praying the Blue Moon Alpha would make it quick for him and his mate. Lobo stood as still as a statue watching the prince's final rush. It was practically in slow motion and almost as laughable. Lobo barely moved as he dodged the haphazard charge and sunk his teeth into the prince's neck. He shook him like a rag doll and then threw him to the ground only to pick him up and repeat the savage gesture. The prince cried out sharply, then lay unmoving. Lobo backed away as Ansel hurried into the ring. Checking the prince, Ansel stood and announced, "He breathes." Ansel stepped back as another elder brought a large hourglass. Together, they flipped it and waited as the sand ran down. It would take 3 minutes for the time to run out. That was how much time the prince had to rise and continue the fight. It was also 3 minutes he would have to recover without medical assistance. He could easily expire in that time as his breath rattled in his chest. Lobo moved back, waiting for the prince to either expire or stand again. But he wouldn't. He kept a wary eye on the first prince, waiting for any sign or gesture he would enter the fray as time slowly ran down. As the last grains fell, Ansel straightened. "Prince Nolan is unable to continue. The victor is Alpha Jason."